call.
Reed Campbell,
Here.
Tom Haglund,
Here.
Sue Kern,
Here.
Ruth Nelson,
Here.
Bob Nystrom,
Here.
Chris Robinson, 5 of the 6 present.
We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, tonight, there is one amendment to the agenda. Athletic Director Charlie Campbell cannot be here tonight, so we'll postpone that part of the meeting, that's 9B, until our next meeting. And also, before we approve the agenda, I just want to say this is both the public hearing for truth and taxation and also our regular meeting. So we will have 2 separate public inputs. The first one will come after we have our public input presentation, where people can talk about their taxes payable in 2019. And the second one will come later in the meeting during, I think it's right before the action items,
It's right in the middle of the action before
before
we
the,
look at property acquisition.
before we, yeah, so we'll have a second public input for anyone else that wants to talk about other items, including property acquisition. So having that, I need an approval of the agenda as amended without 9B.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Nystrom.
Second.
Thank you, Director Campbell. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll say aye.
Aye.
Those who don't approve, same sign, motion carried. And we'll go on to the public hearing, and Marcy Lord will be presenting. And
Good
please note
evening.
that Director Robinson is here.
I know you all have been waiting for this exciting topic. So this is the public hearing for our taxes payable 2019. This presentation is, a lot of the data comes from MREA, which is Minnesota Rural Education Association, and represents the interests of rural school districts. So it does have a lot of good data on rural districts, which we are. The agenda, a lot of factors affecting the residents' proposed property taxes, so we'll kind of go through big picture, property classification and value, market and state factors, the new ag credit, school district and state factors, and then the levy summary and also the budget summary, and if there are any questions. And if you feel there's a question as I'm going through, please don't hesitate to ask. The big picture. So the legislature and governor, they establish the overall tax policy for the state. They set funding amounts as well. They determine the amount of state aid, the tax base is used for levies. And then they create the authority for school levy options. And then the school board comes into play. So the legislature and governor set all the guidelines. And then you guys make the determination of how much do we want to levy the full amount, the limitation, the maximum, or do we want to under levy? Some of our levies are financed entirely by, there is no state aid, there is no equalization, I should say. For example, Safe Schools is one that is completely levied, there is no state aid. An example of a levy and aid combination is operating capital. And then also, we have the option of going to the voters for operating referendums or capital referendums, which we did in April. We did the capital blueprint 181. So we had the authority to issue more debt and follow that finance plan. The big picture of government. So this graph depicts personal income as a percent of state and local revenues. So you can see that it actually is decreasing. So the cost of government is actually decreasing. Most people would find that hard to believe, but the data does show that it is. Taxes are declining as a percent statewide compared to personal income, and it's expected to continue. I did want to note, though, however, the actual numbers are used for 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 are projections that were put out by the state. State aid impact. So this graph depicts who collects. So the state collects 62% of the revenues. Non-local school is 30%, and then school district is 8%. But who actually spends that money? The school district spends about 27%. Non-local school is 37%, and then the state is 36%. So the state collects 62%, but then with all the pass-through and to other government entities, they actually only spend 36%. So the history of our basic education formula, the Supreme Court in '93 upheld the fundamental right for general and uniform system of education. So Minnesota came up with the basic school funding. They used equalization factors for various property taxes. And then there's a note on there, since started in 2003, state funding has not kept up with inflation. And the next graph depicts that. So in 2003, if the state had followed the inflation, or CPI, the general ed formula should be $6,930. It currently is at $6,312. So it's about $600 per pupil, or $525 million annually. The green dotted line is the current formula. And then this next graph is the state altogether, so all school districts. In over 97% of all the school districts, school property tax levies are higher today than in fiscal year 2003. Districts have used a combination of voter-approved or board-authorized to replace reductions in state aid, which we also have. So we have the $300 board-approved referendum, and then we have the $424 local optional revenue. 3/4 of all districts per pupil levies doubled over this period of time. So someone who maybe had a $200 levy now would have a $400 levy, referendum, excuse me. And then this graph depicts how rural districts fell behind. So rural versus metro. Metro went down about $243, the median per pupil revenue. Rural, however, went down $430, so we actually lost $187 per pupil more than median, which equals about 3% of the formula. So they're able to replace the lost formula aid more so than we were. And then this next graph is actually just Brainerd specific. So when you look at this graph compared to the state's levy line, the green line, is a lot more consistent. Brainerd has had a couple of ups and downs. And then at the end, it does go down a little bit, and it's because we forecast 0 and 0 for the state budget for every biennium until we actually know what they're going to give us. And then I did notice that one little drop. It looks like fiscal year 15. I tried to look back, and it looks like, from what I found, the estimated enrollment was down 96 adjusted ADMs. So that kind of was what that little hiccup was from. So taxpayers, when they receive their tax statements in the spring, they have an option to go to the county, and if they see considerable increases in their valuation, they can appeal to the county in the spring when the valuation notice is received. So this up there on the board is an example of a valuation notice, and it has the property classification, the market value. So actually for this year, you cannot go back and change it, but if you wanted to look at 2020's valuation, you would get something this spring, 2019, and go in and appeal that. Market value changes. You'll see on here that agriculture has really jumped around quite a bit, and in fact has went down in the last couple of years. And the residential has been growing since 2011. So with the recession and then coming back a little bit is kind of what that indicates. And then also in 2011, there was a homestead exclusion, which replaced the homestead credit. So after that, it dropped, and then it started to come back up. Market values, so the county assessors are to stay within 90% of sales. And I looked at our levy sheet, and our sales ratio is 97.3% for 2017. So we're right up in there. So effective tax rates, these are set by the legislature. So your property is, either a residential homestead or a seasonal rec. It is identified. And then these are the rates that are set forth for those properties. And then they go through and do a calculation, market value times the class rate, and that equals your taxable value. And then based on that, they go through and calculate the share of your taxes. And this is an interesting graph showing, okay, the market value of all of these property classifications, and then what's their share of net taxes. So farms the market share is 23%, but their share of net taxes is 7%. There was a tax bill passed in 2017 that will move commercial and industrial share of net taxes to their market value over time when the statewide business tax is taken into account. So there is quite a gap there, 12% to 28%, but with this bill, it's supposed to bring them closer together.
And this is statewide information, right?
Yes, correct.
So our seasonal rec would be a higher percentage?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Marcy, can you explain that again on the commercial side?
yes, so there was a tax bill passed in 2017, and it's supposed to, I don't know the full details of the bill, but it's supposed to bring that gap closer so that the market share is actually closer to what the share of net taxes is. Similar to, all the other line items are very similar minus farms, but that one does have a gap.
Huge.
New in 2018, there's an ag bond credit, and the credit is a replacement of locally collected taxes paid by farm and timber landowners with payments from state general fund. So the state general fund is income and sales tax collections, so it's not a shift from any other local property taxpayers, it's just taking from the state fund to cover some of these taxes. And then I did put a note on there, the total savings in Brainerd Public Schools was $103,000, or savings per $500,000 in land value was about $107.75.
So is that a savings on our property tax?
On their taxes, yes, yes, for farm or timber landowners.
Oh, okay.
And then I did, this is an example of where you would find that ag bond credit on your statement. And then since it's paid by the state, it doesn't show up on the levy certification report. So I wouldn't have the number, on my levy report. It was a separate report that I could find that information. So the total tax levy for 2019 is going up $3,793,160.01, or 19.42%. The majority of this is the voter-approved line with the voter passage of Blueprint 181 plan on April 10, 2018. Other local levies, there were no major changes, so the majority of that increase is from Blueprint 181. And then this is a chart to show the referendum market value levies. So tier 1 is up to $300, tier 2 is $300 to $760, and then also local optional revenue. And then tier 3 is $760 to $1,451. And Sue did ask the question, what's the difference between the tiers? It's the equalization. So the equalization goes down with every tier. You have higher equalization on tier 1 than you do on tier 3. And there was I believe in your packet, the approved referendum allowance level. I had 300 in there, that was incorrect, it's 724. So we have the $300 board approved, as I had said, and the 424 local optional revenue. And then local optional revenue was passed in 2014 to provide equal opportunity for students. It's optional. Every year we have adopted it. There is the option to under levy it. We have never done that, but it is something that we do present every year, that we levy the full amount. And then same with the $300. That is something that we have passed in the past, and it is the full amount. You'd have to change that with your resolution, so
So Marcy, what will happen next year with local option?
that should still be,
It'll just be automatic?
yep.
Okay.
And both those options are currently reflected on the tax statement. That's not something that if we, you guys approved the levy, it would make their statements change. It's already in there. And then this is just a breakout of showing each tier one and our local optional revenue and the actual money. So the first column, or the third column is the aid received from the state. And then the third column is the amount that's received from the state or through the levy. So we have about 5 million that comes from our board approved referendum and local optional revenue. So how does our referendum compare to others in the state? So we have the $724 per adjusted pupil unit. About 90 other districts have that same amount. And if you look, we're actually below the median, which is 983. And I don't think my mouse will show up on here, but we are our district is the one that has, there's 2 oranges, and we're kind of up above that.
Is it the white one or?
Nope, it's right in the middle of the
Lynn, can you
yellow.
point to our district? Just so we know where it is.
Right there, yeah, you got it.
The narrower one, not the big one to the right.
To
The big one to the right.
The big one.
What is the big one?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, right there.
One there.
okay.
That's our district now.
Okay. And then this is the property wealth per pupil. And the interesting part is we are above the median on that amount. So we have more wealth per pupil in our area. And we're in the yellow on that one as well.
That would include seasonal recreational.
Correct. And then this is more of another summary of the property value versus the operating referendum. So average referendum property value is 583. We're at the 510. So metro districts are able to generate almost twice as much local revenue than rural school districts.
And they do that primarily through voter-approved referendums.
So LTFM, it was passed in 2015. We, in July, just approved our 10-year plan. Every year, annually, you have to do that. And it allowed districts to get a little bit more equality. The largest 25 school districts invested $2.79 per square foot in maintenance. And districts like ours were capped at 58 cents, so about 5 times less. So that has brought that equality to our maintenance. And part of that is our Blueprint 181 plan. We're using some of those funds for that plan. And then the LTFM is reflected in the tax notice as well. It's not something that would change with tonight. It was used to replace health and safety, alternative facilities funding, and it's a 3-year phase-in. So the aid was $193 in 16-17. $292 in 17-18, and now will be $380 in 18-19. And then this is just showing how our aid has slowly gone up. So in 17, it was $375,036. And for this one, this year, it'll be increasing about $125,000 with that aid increase. The general fund levy summary. So this was showed in September on the proposed. And I just want to highlight that there is a new column now, it's limitation, and the bold amounts have changed. So in the proposed levy, we had a reduction of about $2,925,000 in debt excess. Well, since then, we have issued those three, the two refinancing and the issuing of the deferred maintenance bonds. So that is now reflected in the limitation. So the proposed levy that you guys certified was maximum of and it was 19.86% increase. Now with the actuals in there, it's going to be a 19.42% increase, which is what you are being asked to approve tonight. And then this is just the other funds, and it shows, again, in the bold are the columns that change. So in the debt service, and then also in the OPEB debt service. And then as part of this presentation, we're supposed to talk about our budget. So this is the preliminary budget for 18-19 for the general and food service, and it was approved on June 25th, 2018. We are unique in that our budget is unrelated to the levy that we're currently presenting. Our pay 2019 funds are actually for the 2020-21 budget. The requirement was more relevant to counties and cities which adopt a calendar year budget in December. So they're adopting their budget for next year and they're receiving those taxes in the next year. We're kind of, yes, you can look at this budget, but our taxes are technically being collected for the next, or 2020 to 2021. And then this was the other funds budget that was presented in June. So for the truth and taxation meeting requirements, budget and levy discussion, we've went through the budget, we've went through the levy. There must be public comment, which we will have after this. And the meeting has to be after November 24th, but no later than December 28th, and held after 6 p.m. or later. And it can be a part of the regular meeting. Do you guys have any questions on that?
Any questions from the board? It's an interesting presentation. Okay.
I did that one, so
Okay.
the estimates that we were given for the referendum did come out to, like an average size home, and that amount that they're increasing to go up did come true.
Yes, they should have, yes. And I welcome any feedback. I mean, this is the first time doing this, so if there is something that you'd like to see in future presentations, please let me know.
This was good.
Okay, so now it is time for public comment. And please, if you're welcome to come up. And Marcy, you should probably, if you want to just take a seat over here, and in case there's a question you can answer. But anyway, during the public comment session, please be reminded that we're following Board Policy 206. And please try to limit your speaking to 3 minutes. And state your name and come on, you're welcome to come forward. So, is there anyone there?
Sure, go on. Sit here and speak into the microphone?
Yep, that would be great.
All right. Good evening, my name is Dennis Drummond Wine Company, and also a homeowner on Lower South Long Lake. And I was looking at the numbers going, wow, things have jumped a little bit from last year. And would like to make a comment as a new business owner and a resident for the last 14 years, to see my house school levy go up by, not a lot of money, but percentage-wise, 60, almost 66%. That's quite a jump. That's not as much of a financial burden as the business, which has gone up almost $800. And we're a new business, we're just starting, and so we're watching every penny. And when something like this happens, even though I voted for the referendum and I believe in what you guys are doing, so, yes, I know you gotta extract money out of something, but it hurts. And I just wanted to say that publicly, and if there's any way, you guys can all come down and eat at my location. So it's, advertising, no. But yes, it does hurt, but I do want the schools have to be good too, because that's part of the reason we moved to Minnesota from California, is the schools are so much better here than they are out there, believe me. So, yes, it hurts, and yes, I know you're doing the best you can, so that's my point, and thank you.
And you do have a beautiful place out there. If people haven't been there, it's beautiful. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis.
Anyone else like to comment before we proceed on to the next portion of our meeting? Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, only one.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks, Dennis.
I gotta go back to work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we'll go on with the approval of the final certified levy for taxes payable in 2019. And the resolution is on your board book and on your agenda.
I'll move that we approve the final certified tax levy for taxes payable in 2019.
At the maximum.
At the maximum.
Oh, it's at this amount, I think.
Yeah, it's at the amount.
Yeah, it's at that amount, the total proposed.
Oh, okay. As listed, then.
Okay. So we have a motion from Director Nystrom to approve the final certified tax levy at the listed amount of $23,330,304.26. Okay, thank you, Director Campbell. Further discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Tom Hagelin,
Yes.
Sue Curran,
Yes.
Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
Bob Nystrom,
Yes.
Chris Robinson,
Yes.
Reed Campbell,
Yes.
all in favor?
Okay, thank you. So we have approval of the final certified levy. Thank you, everyone, for listening to that, and we'll go on to the approval of our minutes for our regular board meeting of November 26th.
So move.
Thank you, Director Hagelin.
Second.
Thank you, Director Kern. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have the consent calendar. If there's anything you would like to pull out, you can do that. Otherwise, I just need a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Kern.
Second?
Thank you, Director Hagelin. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And next up, we have our reports and communications. The first is a Brainerd High School Student Council update. Are they here?
Nobody's here.
Okay. Okay, so we will skip that. The activities update, we'll have at the next board meeting, so we're up to Tim Murtha and the World's Best Workforce Report presentation.
Thank you.
Good evening. It is that time of year again where I get to deliver the annual World's Best Workforce Report. And in this report, we're required to demonstrate that we have a long-range comprehensive strategic improvement plan for teaching and learning, that we set measurable and attainable goals for improved student achievement and gap closure, and that we have processes and structures in the district designed to make that happen. What you're seeing tonight is the culmination of really 4 presentations I've given to you beginning back in September as we've gone through the process. As you know, the World's Best Workforce Plan has 5 key components to it, and that we set goals and that we build structures and systems to fulfill those goals in each of the areas above. Early childhood, read well by 3rd grade, closing achievement gaps, college and career readiness, and ensuring that all students graduate from high school. What you've seen so far in the months prior to this presentation, you saw the ESS update, which outlined the changes in accountability. You saw the district achievement summary data for the 2017-2018 school year. And we also had some examples of actions that we were taking in the continuous improvement process, such as summer reading and the Carnegie Learning Professionals, that are things that we're doing to fulfill the promise of those goals. In October, you also got to see a preview of the continuous improvement plan and its process, which was followed up in November, where you got to see every single site continuous improvement plan and the district plan. What you have now in front of you is you have the district's World's Best Workforce Plan, which encompasses all the documents that you've been shared with all fall. So there's nothing really new that I'm showing you tonight that you have not seen. It's just all put together in one big structure. When we submit the World's Best Workforce Plan to MDE, we also include some of the key structural documents that we use and the processes that we manage for improving teaching and learning. Key among those would be the staff development structures and procedures documents, which lays out how site staff development and district staff development committees have to operate and how the money is spent. The World's Best Workforce Curriculum Approval Checklist, and a more amplified version of that, which is the approval rubric. Those are the documents we use in order to measure whether new curriculum should be adopted by school board. We also document the curriculum development cycle, which content areas are working in what portion of the process at any given time. And then I included a copy of the MAP template just to show you what they have to submit as we go through the process. You've also seen the 5 World's Best Workforce goals for the district. You saw them. They were in section 2 of every single site's continuous improvement plan in the previous document shared. And these are the guiding goals that all the other goals in the district derive from. So this is the anchor points on the horizon that we're all trying to work towards. In essence, they look for an increase of between 2 and 3% in achievement in their respective areas. They also look for a gap reduction goal of around 2% or a little bit more in college, or in the achievement gap area. So what we're trying to make sure that we're doing is that we have achievable, measurable goals. Some of you will remember a few years ago when we were under the NCLBA waiver, we had these astronomical goals because you had a fixed timeline to reach a certain point that nobody in the state did. That the attempt was to force us to set goals that would get us there in 6 years, then in 5 years, and in 4 years. Looks like we're going to head back down that pathway again. You're going to see that in the high school graduation goal. The challenge there is if you don't make enough progress the first year, what you didn't achieve gets added to the goal the following. So by year 4, 5, or 6, you get 20%, 30%, whatever your situation is. Those are unattainable and they are counterproductive goals. So we try to make sure that we're very measured in what we want. We want that fixed point on the horizon. We also want it to be achievable, so it also inspires us to stretch a little to get to that point without being unrealistic. The high school graduation rate is the highest goal that we've set at 3% because we do know that in a few years, according to ESSA, we have a target that we must make. And that target is going to be about 15% or 12% higher than where we currently are at. That's going to be a bit of a stretch for anyone to make. So we're going to try and front load some of the challenge on there and get to that as quickly as possible. So again, you've seen these goals before. Those are the ones that guide the processes that we have. The next set of slides are just a breakdown of the structures in the district that are used to fulfill the goals. So for all children ready for school, you're seeing the key elements of the early childhood, family and early childhood special education structures, whether it's the school readiness preschool, ECFE, parent-child work, and the early childhood screening that we do. For all third graders reading at grade level, we have kindergarten through second grade literacy coaching to support instruction in literacy. We have literacy interventionists at all elementary buildings, title or non-title. And in the title buildings, we also have another layer of support there as well. And we still use Title II dollars for class size reduction at the elementary level as well. For gap closure, where we're challenged that all racial and economic achievement gaps between students are closed, the primary structures we use for that are the ACOMP plan, the site staff development plans, where they look specifically at their own populations and their own data, and then we use the continuous improvement retreat for determining which achievement gaps are the ones that they want to focus on. And as we've stated before, the largest portion of students who have an achievement gap in the district are students in poverty, and the largest calculable achievement gap is students who are in special ed. And so those are the two areas that are most commonly identified in the site improvement plans. All students are ready for college and career readiness. All students are college and career ready. We use a variety of things for this. A lot of this is the data work that we do in the district in terms of tracking student growth, and those are outlined there, and some of the academic programming that we offer. The challenge for us is we use currently the ACT as an indicator of college and career readiness, but we also know that that is an assessment that's designed for the majority of kids who are going off to four-year universities, and that's not indicative of the entire population of the state, of the school district once they graduate. As we move into the new ESSA era, we're looking for technical assistance from MDE to identify a more comprehensive indicator of college and career readiness. And I hope to bring that to you either this spring or next fall when I come back around the horn again. All students graduate from high school. The key elements there are making sure that we have a guaranteed and viable curriculum, and it's an adopted curriculum approved by the board that is implemented with fidelity across the district, and then is reinforced with an RTI structure, response to intervention, which ensures that kids are getting help immediately before they fall too far behind. Overall, there are three distinct processes which drive or which support the World's Best Workforce Plan: the curriculum process, the staff development process, and the ACOMP or QCOMP process, ATPPS. What are we asking for tonight? We're asking for board confirmation that the 2018 World's Best Workforce Goals and the continuous improvement plans have been publicly viewed. That is our obligation. With your approval, I will submit these to the state of Minnesota and post them on the website. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any questions for Mr. Murtha?
I've got a question, Tim. Just using the high school graduation rate just as an example with our plan. So we've got a goal set of 84% to graduate this year.
Correct.
And where do we think we're going to be?
We need to be, last year we graduated 81% of our students. Our next benchmark would be 84% this coming spring. Actually, it's a one-year lag indicator. So what we want to be in 2019 is above 84%. We need to get above 90% in about 3 years. And that's got a little bit of a push to it for us. That's rare air to get your graduation rate that high. Am I answering your question, Tom? Or Director Hagman? Sorry.
Yeah, somewhat. Do we have a feel, you know, it's early in the year somewhat, but how we're tracking so far for our seniors?
What I would need to see for that is I would need to pull for the graduating cohort this year the number of passing grades at the next marker, which would be in January. So what I need to see is how many students acquired how many credits relative to where they were as a junior and where they need to be to graduate. The next window for me to get that data would be January. That'd
Let
be
let
end
me
of
ask
first.
just a different question. What was our graduation rate percentage for 2018?
For 2018, it was 81.4.
And our goal was 84.
Our goal would have been,
Am I reading this right?
I think I have it written poorly. The goal would have been probably 82.5 to 83% at that point. We stretched it out to 84 for the following year. What it should say is because there's a year lag indicator, you don't get your data on graduation rate the year that they graduate. You wait 1 year. So all the others are for this year. This one would reflect last year, but we don't have the data yet for last year. So we're hoping to get to 84. That would be the better way to explain it. I haven't said that well, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Maybe if I can keep on throwing
Keep coming.
my question, I guess. So, ultimately, I guess what I'm getting at is that, the data is one thing, that it lags, et cetera, but how do we know how we're performing? I hate to even say each month. I'd love to say each week, but, it just seems like when when we get the information, or when our teachers and principals get the information, it's like, well, it's too late. We'll try the next year's classes. And is there anything?
For the tested areas, I would say let's start with math and language arts and literacy reading, particularly in reading. At the elementary, we have 4 times during the year where we text level students. So we have an indicator at that point of how many kids are on process to reading at grade level by the end of the year. We can reinforce that at elementary and middle school with our STAR Enterprise data. We do this 3 times a year, and so the teachers are able to look at, okay, you have an MCA in spring, STAR is going to test them in reading, and it's going to test them in math, and we're going to get some data here that tells us what's the likelihood they will be at grade level by the time the MCAs roll around in the spring. So they have that data. When you get up into the high school and you're in the non-tested areas, it gets much harder to find that data. We don't have those progress monitoring tools in place, partly because they don't really exist. The only ones we have are really ones around comprehensive assessments. Are you asking to see the STAR data as it comes in? We've had
No,
one.
I guess what then, and I understand it gets harder as they're in the senior level, but it seems like we have these goals set, so in 3 years, we need to be at 90%
Right.
graduation, whatever that is, but yet, I'm asking, well, what are we doing when we test on the students and we feel that they're not meeting it, whether it's in math, what specifically is happening to get them there, other than here are what the results are. And we don't have to necessarily talk about it here, maybe offline sometime you and I can visit, but what is it that we're doing for each and every student that's not meeting that, and what to get it back on track so that they do achieve that? And in particular, to have a goal set at, say, a 90% graduation rate, and the data isn't there, what is it exactly that we're doing, student by student, to get them there? And it's always been
Happy to have the cup of coffee and the conversation with you. My short answer to that is, it starts with the classroom assessments the teachers have. The curriculum work that the teachers do is intended to answer 4 questions. Number 1, what do you want kids to know and be able to do? That's defined by the standards. Question number 2 is, how do we know that they know it, can do it? That's a question of assessment. We use a fairly comprehensive assessment model. The most important assessments are going to be those assessments administered by teachers that they can use that data to respond with their instruction immediately. So those are the formative assessments that they give either weekly or every couple of weeks or as part of a unit moving towards a summative assessment. Those formative assessments, whether it's text leveling or whether it's a quiz in a unit, that's the data that tells teachers whether or not the scaffolding they've put in place is moving students towards proficiency or towards the appropriate level of growth. The next level of data starts to become system data. So as you move out of the classroom into the PLC, there's certain pieces of data that all teachers in all content areas have defined as important enough that they're going to commonly collect that data. So they're going to have common formative assessments that are used to inform, again, what are they collectively going to do? What they usually do is they go into their curriculum documents. They're going to identify that priority, that power standard that they're working on in any particular unit. And they're going to have a couple common formative assessments that allow them to collectively respond to what they see as a pattern there. So if all the students are struggling with slope, intercept, form, and math, in that cohort at that time, they know this before they get to the summative assessment, and they can either reteach, reapproach a different way, to subdivide students if they need to, some need to be pulled out for some little extra help. So that data drives the actions that they take. As we move up that system data scale, we look at data in terms of star data, with the stars telling me how well is this cohort moving towards performance on the MCA. Move up another level in the data, you have the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessment data itself, which at this point is really telling you how well your curriculum is functioning. It's macro data. The data that's impactful in the hands of teachers is the micro data. That's that day-to-day formative assessment, this common formative assessments. The PLC structure that we use is where that occurs. When teachers discuss this, they compare notes, they share ideas. That's why it's a key component of the ACOMP plan as part of job-embedded staff development. So I think that's where you want to look to find that data. So yes, sometimes it feels, particularly if you're on the outside, that the data that we talk about here for compliance reasons is distinct from what goes on in the classroom. It's not. It's part of a continuum of data that starts with instructional practice and ends with that macro data. But that's not always evident in the public viewings of it. But this is the essence of the continuous improvement process of the district, is that reflection by teachers on what they see happening on formative assessments. That's our biggest bang for our buck. And the macro data, its value in the system is to really give us just dipstick checks on an annual basis to create some longitudinal patterns to see if we need to make structural changes. The most important changes are those made by teachers with their kids based on that formative assessment data. And
Thank you. You've got a tough job, and I appreciate the report. Can I just one last request, sometime when you get a free minute, not now, but can I just get what the graduation rate has been for the last 5 years?
yeah,
Thanks.
not a problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And you know, that's kind of, we haven't had like curriculum meetings here or anything in the past year or whatever. It might be worthwhile to have like maybe have the high school principals, Russ, Nancy Anderson, and Jessica Hopajoki come and report how this plan affects how they run their schools. And then maybe do the elementaries or, you know, and have more of those, because this is so much right here in one document. And
I know it's very dense, but unfortunately I'm required
yeah.
to submit that to
yeah, so I
this.
think that would be helpful for the board to hear from them more about.
For those
our
board
curriculum.
members who have attended the district advisory committee where you see the curriculum work, I mean, do you see the connection between what we're attempting to do and the data work that we do and how we manage instruction in the district?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And what are the consequences if we don't meet those goals? In the graduation rate, let's say.
For ESSA, the consequences are not the punitive consequences yet that there were under No Child Left Behind. You get flagged for technical assistance, which you are strongly encouraged to take. We are taking technical assistance on graduation rate for special ed students in the high school and for the graduation rate for all categories of students in the ALC. What that means is they require us to do a needs analysis based on our data. They require us to have an improvement process. They require us to set goals and create action plans and measure those action plans. We met with the Center for Excellence representatives in this last month regarding that, and they were more than satisfied that the process we have in place for continuous improvement exceeded their expectations. We just need to follow through.
I can make a comment on that. I think the real consequence is those students that didn't graduate and we failed them. forget about the state mandates and everything, we failed them.
Yep.
We don't get another chance.
And I would argue that that's a smaller population than the accountability system indicates. A four-year graduation rate for an ALC is an unreasonable expectation. One of the primary identifying elements for those students is they are more than a year behind academically at the high school, wherever they come from. Vast majority of the kids in the ALC are ours. I did some digging on that. They're not always transfers who are coming in. Our 6-year graduation rate and our 7-year graduation rates in our adult basic education programs are very successful, with high rates of graduation. We have work to do on graduating special ed at the high school. That is fair.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay, next up, we'll go on to our building project update, and we'll have an overview of our overview of our meeting with the Brainerd City Council and the Board of Education, and our proposed property acquisition update, and that is from the Board of Education. And this time, should we have Corey come up and talk about? Okay. And maybe Corey can join us and talk about what, any further updates? And so to get us started, I thought the joint meeting we had went really well, and we made some changes, and they were appreciative of those changes. I think we kind of came to a consensus at that meeting that we were on the right track. Do we want to hear from Corey? Okay,
I thought that too.
okay.
A motion was made tonight to support the revised plans and look at, there was a lot of discussion before they made any motions about the one-way on 15th Street by Harrison. At one point, somebody even reminded them that our representatives had said that that could be changed. It was just the initial idea. Anyway, lots of discussion about that. So the first motion on the table was to support the revised plan with a little kind of footnote about taking a second look at 15th Street. That died for lack of a second. Another motion was put on the table to direct the city's engineering staff to work with the district staff to look at the whole plan again, specifically and especially 15th Street, but clarifying questions were asked about whether it meant the whole plan or just Harrison. And the motion that was voted on was for the whole plan. So that motion passed 4-2.
The whole plan being all 4 schools or just Harrison?
All 4 schools.
And can you repeat again what that motion was?
A motion directing the city engineering staff to work with district staff to take a look at the parking plan at all 4 schools.
Yeah, okay. To review again with staff to staff.
Yeah.
But they're in support of what we're doing, from what you understood. And there was no vote on a moratorium tonight.
No vote on a moratorium. But as I said, the motion to support the revised plan died for lack of a second. So I don't know what that means.
On all 4 schools, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, want to go back to each plan.
It did not feel like the support that was expressed last week. Take that for what it's worth.
Okay.
Was there any further clarification on, it was pretty quiet, they didn't say why.
There was discussion. Like I said, much of it centered around the one-way at Harrison. The few council members who spoke, including the mayor, said that that is what they had heard from residents about, was that one-way. And
Okay. Yeah, we have, yeah. And I think we were fairly clear at that meeting that that was something that had to be further looked at.
And one of the council members reiterated that had been stated, that could be looked at again.
So Corey, the 2 no votes, who were they, and was it, can you share who that was?
I couldn't tell who it was
Oh,
who voted,
okay,
and there was no more discussion after they voted.
okay.
Okay. Do we have any further discussion on that item? No? All right. Okay, we'll go on to the standards meeting update. Kristen? And Natalie? Not Natalie, sorry.
Evening.
Good evening.
Four things to bring to you tonight. Standards meeting update, the final review of the Harrison Elementary Design Development Package, initial review of the new elementary in Baxter Design Development, as well as siting the building along Jasperwood, and then the initial review of the high school schematic design. The standard meetings continue to meet. They've kind of shifted focus. I think we've mentioned this in the past, to more interior-exterior imagery. Keep in mind, the imaging I'm just showing you here for Nisswa is just a work in progress, but we have started looking at the entrances as kind of that identifying element that maybe carries across the district. This is an example. As we get through some of the other buildings, you'll see some other examples that are being worked on. By no means are these the final, but they're just some ideas that are being investigated right now for the group. We just thought we'd share that at Nisswa, being that was approved last week, and there's still things that'll be developed as we move through the months here, but just an idea of what that'll look like. We also have 3 meetings scheduled tomorrow to drill down into some of the specialty spaces in the building, that being music, the STEAM area, so science, tech, engineering, art, and math, and then the special education areas as well. For the most part, the plans that you've seen, a lot of the items have been figured out, but we're really just getting into the detail of standardizing casework and some other items so that we have equity through the district, and we have not one building's missing out on something that the other building has. So those will carry through for the next round, Lowell, Garfield, and then other buildings as we progress as well. So Harrison, plan really hasn't changed, I don't believe at all, actually, since you last saw it. So again, the classrooms are organized around the learning commons areas, special ed being that lower portion of the plan right here, and then a grade level in this area. Same thing on main level, 2 grade areas located around that resource area, with the student dining area and stage auditorium area, with the new kitchen, and then the half gym. We do have an alternate right now to fill out that gym based on the way bids would occur, so it would be a full-size gym. And then the main secure entrance office area on the main level. Upper level, again, 2 grade levels organized around learning commons, and then we've got the media center along with some specialty spaces, that STEAM area being one of them, and some special ed areas as well. Our current site plan, as it's been developed through project oversight and with the other groups, is really focusing on the east side of the building along 16th and taking the properties on that end of the area there. And then creating that parking lot that we've talked about, either 36 to 40 spots, depending on whether this other entrance is deemed necessary, with a couple accessible handicap spots as well. Special ed busing would be in this location as the entrance to that special ed suite is down on that lower level, and there's still that existing door that would remain. And then parent drop-off pickup would occur here, with bus drop-off pickup occurring off of Norwood. Again, nothing set in stone with the one-way. I know that just came up. Definitely can be looked at multiple ways. The important thing to note is that for drop-off, however, cars would have to travel north as you want the passenger's door on the drop-off side for that to occur, or pickup side for that to occur.
Are we still looking at adding more parent drop-off on the north, would that be the north side? Or-
Right, so, there was some discussion on that, but, from the engineering standpoint, hearing from the city engineer as well as our engineers, that wouldn't be, suggested. There would be a potential of conflict happening at that intersection. So right now, what's being entertained is, just as we discussed, that south side of the block along Oak Street, where there initially was the bus pickup and drop-off. We would look to signage that to be for parent pickup and drop-off queuing. And then they would wrap around the corner then and utilize the actual inset on the west side of the property. We did have some, just to add, we did have some, a really great meeting with the core group on Friday afternoon. We went through the spaces and started delving into the door hardware and functioning of all of that. And so that group was really excited just to share with you their excitement. When we ended that meeting, it's just a much needed improvement, and as staff, they're super excited. So it's great to see that.
The most current updated exterior image, again, the entry portion is still being worked on, whether that's silver with the blue letters or is something else, but again, working towards that unifying element throughout the district that you'll know you're at a Brainerd school, or 181 school, I should say. Another idea is a site sign. You may not necessarily do both, but this image just shows what that would look like as well. Any questions specific to Harrison? Schedule, we're still tracking based on bringing this to you today for approval of DD. And then budget, we are still tracking as well there, under budget currently. This is where we're tracking.
Great.
So if we approve this design tonight, we can still work on 15th Street to possibly
Correct.
being a two-way, so that,
Correct.
to accommodate our people that live there?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe this is the only item you have on your agenda for a motion following this presentation. So again, that would be to approve the design development portion of this project. The next site, the new elementary at Baxter. Erica, I don't know if you want to quick run through the plan.
Do that. All right, so since the last time some of you may have seen this plan, the one major change is that it has been mirrored 180 since we are working off of Jasperwood. And so the main entrance is off on the east side of the building now. So basically, we just took the whole building and mirrored it on the north-south axis. Which, as we were working on design, that's one of the focuses that we had, was to just make it fluid so that we could have that flexibility once a decision was made on the site. So as I mentioned, this front portion here is the controlled entry, just as we have on all the other schools that we're working on right now, along with the admin suite, front entry reception area, housing some offices, workrooms, the staff resource area. Often to your right when you enter is the cafeteria slash event area, where the stage is set here, where it's dual-sided, so it functions for both the gym and the cafeteria. Just to the north of that is the commercial-grade kitchen, and some necessary utilitarian type spaces for receiving and delivery. And then a conference area. We have then just to the west of that, like I mentioned, the gym, some public toilet rooms. And as we progress farther west, then we have the kindergarten learning community. And so just as we are doing on the other schools, like you saw just in Harrison, we have a learning commons here surrounded by 5 kindergarten classrooms. And so this building, I should have mentioned, is a 5-section, so that will enrollment of potential enrollment of 625. And we also have then some sped spaces in this area just outside of the kindergarten learning commons. Down this core center area, like I mentioned, the far east end of it is the admin. As we continue through, we do have this space here as a flex classroom, just as we've built into all the other building plans. In case if there's a blip in the enrollment, that would be available for whatever grade level would need it. We also have music room, and we have art, science, tech space, or STEAM, in conjunction with the media center. And so the thought here for these spaces are there'd be a movable partition between the technology portion of the space and the media center, so that it could be subdivided into 2 spaces, or it could be one whole entire space for a larger event or activity. Just to the south then of that main spine is the locker bay area specific to the grades of 1 and 2. And then centralized to that is the SPED space. We have 2 level 3 special ed classrooms, along with all the necessary support of some reset rooms and timeout rooms. Central to this locker bay area is the stairway that you walk up and enter onto the 2nd level, as well as then there's an elevator here in this area to get up to the 2nd level. So up at the 2nd level then, again, same type of footprint over on this 2-story area of the school. You got their locker bay, and then you have grades 3 and 4, along with, again, SPED spaces in the center. These focus on level 2 programs. I should just mention quick, each learning commons or community does have their own toilet facilities, as well as a smaller breakout area. And then again, this is the commons area to that learning community.
The site, as we've been developing it, again, along future Jasper Wood here, this has been through much development and project oversight and discussion. So what you're seeing here is a bus loop that is striped for after-hours parking, for event parking. So we've got overflow parking built into it when the buses wouldn't be there. We also have a parent drop-off drive, dedicated drive, where they'd be entering into this side and then pulling around. This is still somewhat in development as we're trying to determine exactly where it should position to the front door, but in concept, this is what would occur. And then we also have the parking lot on the northern side of the building. One ball field will be developed along with some playground areas. These were master planned in, but they're not part of the current scope, but it's just there's availability to do that in the future if the district would so choose. And then the outline of the current site that we're discussing is this out portion right here, back down to future Jasper Wood. This is Knollwood over here, just for reference.
And one thing I maybe should have mentioned on the plan is this building, we've been master planning for potentially adding a 6th section. And so in doing so, each of the wings would have an additional classroom added, as well as then you can see on this site plan the location for future gym to have the capacity for that 6th section.
Updated rendering that, again, shows some of that development that's happened in the standards meeting with the branding incorporated into it. And another image as well. This project as well is tracking on budget currently. We're right about at budget right now at this phase of the project. And we'll be coming back to you next Wednesday for approval of design development, which will keep us on track with our current schedule as well. Any questions related to the new elementary?
It looks beautiful. The only question I have is on the playground. It's hard to tell from that drawing, but it looks kind of small. Are we making sure we're designing a playground for 625 kids?
Right. So right now, it's just a placeholder, just
Okay.
identifying
We haven't
where.
even talked about
Yep,
that yet.
we'll delve into further detail on that, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
Might you have a smaller one, like a smaller area by the kindergarten section and then bigger equipment over on the other side?
Right. Typically, that's what you would do for an elementary school.
Okay, good.
In the high school, this has seen a lot more development. I'll let Erica walk through the plan, but from compared to where you've seen in the past, there's been quite a bit of development in certain portions of the project here. So this will be the initial review of schematic design. So those boxes and relationships are really starting to get nailed down and become real floor plan in this plan.
All right, so I'll apologize because it is small, but this is a very large building. So this building is right now subdivided into two. This is the lower level that you're looking at. And so this is the upper portion of that lower level. And what you're seeing here are 3 sped spaces along with a PAYS lab on this portion of the building. The remainder of this area all remains as is. That's the only change that occurs in this area. Then when we head to the south portion of the building that has a lower level as well, one major change that you see is here, right in this location, is the 8-lane competition pool with a separate diving well. And on the main level, you'll see that we've been working on top loading all activities. And so down on this level are actually the locker rooms that are tucked under those bleachers on the main level. Some necessary support spaces go along with that. This middle portion, really no change occurring here because that's all existing. The one other change that occurs is off on the west side of the building. There, we've started looking at, this is one change that has happened or occurred since we last, or you may have last seen this. The auxiliary gym or the extra gym, competition gym that we've been looking at in the past had always been drawn kind of in this area. So we were tasked with studying the possibility of tucking it into this corner. And so there's a grade differential that occurs over there. And so to work with that, we were proposing to put the locker room spaces on that lower level. And then when you see the main level, we'll show you the actual, the gym court area actually occurs on the main level. The one challenge that we have with this right now that we're still trying to work through is access back to that area. Obviously, again, as I mentioned, trying to top load every activity in this building. To gain access over would have to be through this mezzanine walkway area and looking further into how we can modify the mechanical system to gain access over into that area. So we have a little bit more studying to do on that, as well as looking at seeing if we need to add an elevator over into this area to gain access then to the lower level. The only other change, can you flip back quick to the lower level? Sorry. The only other change on this lower level is we are utilizing the space under that original existing pool. We're carving out a couple of health and wellness spaces, as well as team meeting for dual purpose spaces for team meetings after school activities. And the rest of it remains just storage as it is now.
Erica, what do you have for seating at the swimming pool?
So we're right in that range of 500 for capacity. Now, as design goes, we're just a tad over 500. As design continues and we work, more with the details and get everything in accurately with wall thicknesses and such, that typically scales down a slight bit, but the 500 is, I know, what we're targeting right now. All right, so on the main level, I'm gonna start over here. This is now on the east, as it is, the east entrance is the main entrance, and we're gonna continue to emphasize that as the main entrance, since we're entertaining having the parking off, majority of the parking off on the east side of the building. So we'll come in through the main entrance and enter into a commons area. Here you can see it's subdivided between the two. This is the bottom portion of that commons. And then there's this spine that goes through, again, the center of the school that allows for another additional commons here that can be utilized by the athletics and activities. And then just to the north of that main spine is another commons area that we see being utilized as the existing cafeteria space. We're opening that up and then allowing also for additional seating then during the day for some eating area in this area as well, so that will dual purpose. To the north of the main entrance, we still have the Quad A area, and that's our academic area. Mainly in this area, the change that occurs is a lot of the finishes. We have some area in the cores of these, of this quad that we're subdividing some of the spaces to allow for some additional sped spaces, and just repurposing a couple of the staff office areas into some collaborative areas, as well as staff resource area. Just to the north of that then, as we've been discussing to date, is the Performing Arts Center addition with the 1,200 seat capacity. So here you'll see we're entertaining right now or studying having a larger lobby area off on the northeast corner of the building, which would lend itself nicely to the parking that's off to the east and to the north, the portion of the parking that will remain there on the north side. And then one of the items that in meeting with some of the staff, we realized that, and meeting with the community groups, they had suggested or requested to have a space that could be dual purpose, utilized for black box as well as pre and post event opportunities. So that's this block of space that you see here. Dressing rooms, support space. This is the actual stage for the theater or the auditorium. The back portion here that you see is the band, choir, and orchestra rehearsal spaces. And so those align here with some storage spaces in between for acoustical purposes. We also have then some additional practice or ensemble areas, as well as instrument storage and a secondary teaching space for spaces, needs such as AP theory or music theory, and also potentially guitar lessons as well. So it'll be a multi-purpose space. The remainder of that addition houses additional classrooms. As we've targeted to date, we're looking to move all of the South Campus classroom spaces and students into the North Campus. So we are adding classroom spaces onto this north portion of the building. The portion that was originally the media center becomes now the DCD area for the building. And that program, we've had some great meetings with that group and received a lot of great feedback. So we have their spaces, some classroom spaces, as well as commons and some accessory spaces for their needs. And this vestibule here is tied to their needs for having a separate access point for drop-off and pickup as well. So along this side, or the east side of this area of the building, you can see kind of that orange shaded, those are some additional CTE spaces. We're looking to have and remain with the video production portion in this area. That's their existing spaces, and they'll remain that way. The rest of this string of spaces are visual arts and electronic arts. We have some pottery and all of those, so a lot of the art programs. Then in this, what used to be the locker hallway or corridor, that will be converted into a media center. And the rest of this is kitchen area, and then, like I already mentioned, the eating commons area. So if we look at the south portion of the building, as I just alluded to, some CTE spaces in the north portion, the remainder of those then are in the existing CTE area of the building. And so you'll see we have had, again, some really great meetings with that group, received a lot of great feedback, and have heard that they're excited about their spaces and the potential offerings that, the potential that those spaces will provide for their programmatic needs. I should have, let me just back up here once. Off of the main entrance, while we have this housing your principal's office, conference, main check-in, just to the other side of that main vestibule is will be attendance, some additional office space, as well as then just to the south of that would be health services, so that if someone is sick, they can then check out and have that proximity to attendance, and there's some efficiencies there for that, for those needs. What we're trying to accomplish with the CTE, as we looked at pre-referendum, is to create some storefront along that commons area so that those coming in from the public will allow, will be provided the opportunity to see what our students are doing. And that will be, I'm hoping, a really exciting thing to just allow the public to see all the great things that our students are doing, because there are a lot of great-minded kids and a lot of potential there for our future workforce. So the remainder of this then, the existing pool gets converted to a multi-purpose gym. And then, as we mentioned, I already covered the the auxiliary gym. And then I also had mentioned then top loading the swimming area and having the bleachers there available for that portion of the building. On the upper level, again, over in Quad A, you have, again, your academic spaces. And mainly that is what's housed up on this level, except for there is up in the theater portion or the performing arts portion of the building is the balcony area for the 1,200 seat auditorium. And so how that's divided right now is it's about 2/3, 1/3. So you'll have some seating up here. This isn't separate from the main level. There is from the main level access up to the balcony, so you don't have to go out and then up. We're working with our theater consultant on that, and that was feedback from some of the tours that we had taken, that staff really liked that, being able to have that direct connection right in the auditorium. So, but as I mentioned then, the remainder of this will remain science labs in this area, as well as then some additional math classrooms over in this area.
We are early in schematic design, or nearing the end, I should say, of. We've run some initial numbers, and we're tracking again on budget with this project as well, with the plans you've seen. And overall schedule, we're tracking as well with bringing this back next Wednesday for approval of SD as well. Any questions?
Are we using up that whole green space in the middle of the school?
No,
There's still
some of that will
some-
remain, yeah. We're trying to provide, continue to provide natural light to as many classrooms as we can. So that is one way to continue to provide that.
Leaving about half, oh. that
Yep,
would be
and
a
then there's
small
still,
area here.
yeah.
And will the north entrance, will that only be for the auditorium, or will the students have a north entrance?
I guess that's yet to be discussed. We haven't really had much discussion on that, so that's something that we should look to have some further discussion on.
So that A section where all the classrooms are they're gonna be refreshed, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. Just making sure, because they look like they weren't changing.
I know,
Other questions?
Looking good.
beautiful.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's very exciting. Okay, so we're done with the building project update. So now we're on to new business. And for action, we have the final approval of the design development of Harrison Elementary School.
I so move to approve the final design of development of Harrison Elementary School.
Second.
Okay, so we have a first from Director Campbell, a second from Director Nystrom. Discussion. So we can go ahead with this and talk about the parking and the
Yep,
everything
this is
separate.
just the building at this point, right?
Yep, okay.
And approval tonight will move us into the construction management phase, where they start doing the construction documents phase, where they start putting together the documents so that we can get ready to go out for bids. So, very exciting to be at this point, so.
Yeah, it's going to be a beautiful building. Further discussion?
Just clarifying, we're not approving the parking or the land.
Correct. We'll have an opportunity later to vote on some of that if you wish to do
Yeah,
that.
and then we still have the second option for the larger gym.
Correct.
Okay.
What are the other ad alternates? That, a roof, some roofing, and it seemed to me there was another one or two.
Did it have something to do with the mechanical or
It was
something?
mostly related to the roofing and maybe some of the
Yeah.
mechanical, but the gym was the main one.
Yep. Say that again?
Windows was one of them, I believe.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so we have a first from Director Campbell, a second from Director Nystrom. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
I'm looking for Kathy. Thought we'd see a great big smile.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, everybody.
Yes. Okay, and then our second action item is approval of the annual World's Best Workforce Plan that Tim Murtha presented earlier.
So move?
Thank you, Director Hagelin.
Second.
Thank you, Director Robinson. Further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And next, we have approval of first reading of MSBA approved policies 901, 903, 904, and 907. And Corey Reynolds is here if we have questions, and these are all new policies.
Right, these will be, that will have 3 readings prior to approval, so.
Do you want me to go through them or just ask questions?
Yeah.
Need anything?
Excuse me. Yeah, you can go ahead and just briefly go through each one.
Just highlight each.
Okay. Policy 901, community education, personal favorite of mine. It just highlights the important role this department has in the district, and it's sort of an affirmation from the board. We don't have this policy, so it is recommended for adoption. Policy 903, visitors to the school building. Again, another policy we don't have, it's recommended for adoption. You'll see there is an addendum there called for in the policy that lays out the visitor check-in procedure. This has been reviewed by staff and administration.
Okay, I had a question on that one, as long as we're on that one.
Sure.
There was a, in that addendum, there was an annual criminal check. Are we already doing that for all of our volunteers?
We are,
Okay, annually.
yes.
Okay, so it doesn't last for 2 years even.
No.
And do we pay for that criminal check?
For most, the vast majority of the volunteer background checks we're doing the free one through the BCA.
Okay,
It's only volunteers who are accompanying students on an overnight trip, like deep portage. Then we ask them to pay the $15 BCA fee.
okay. And so we have a or a procedure in all the schools to get
Yes.
that done every year? Okay.
Yep.
When my kids were, when I volunteered, I don't think I needed to have that done. So
It's
so-
relatively new. We've been doing it just the last few
Yeah,
years.
and it makes sense, but I just thought annual seemed like a lot.
A lot?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, let's see. Policy 904, another policy we don't currently have. It refers to the distribution of materials on district property by non-school persons. These are requests we get frequently from organizations in the community. Typically takes the form of distributing flyers to students. Also, you know, the people who stand on the sidewalks and maybe hand students some other kind of material. We don't have a policy. We do have a practice in place. You'll see attached with this policy is the request form. That basically is what we have been doing, just puts it into a format. Policy 905, we actually do have this policy regarding advertising. You have the red line version available to you.
That's
and
in
that's
the
under
next
number
set. Just
4, so-
907 is what you want
Oh,
to know.
excuse me, 907, rewards. So this is one of those policies recommended for adoption we don't have. Hopefully, we will never need it. But it authorizes the board to offer a reward for information that leads to conviction of someone who commits a crime against the district. So again, we'll never need this, but good to have on hand in the unfortunate event we do.
So those are the 4 in that category then, so.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think we can take those all as one.
I'll move to approve first reading of MSB policies 901, 903, 904, 907 as presented.
Thank you, Director Hagelin.
Second?
Director Campbell. Any questions or further discussion on those? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, now we'll go on to number 4, approval of first reading of 6 updated policies.
All right, policy 801 is equal access to school facilities. This policy has already been adopted. There are a few red lines in it that we recommend for adoption. It specifies who and for what purpose may use the school facilities during non-instructional time. Policy 802 is disposition of obsolete equipment and material. And again, it's a policy that we've already adopted, and it assists the superintendent and the district in the disposition of obsolete equipment in a timely manner. There are some revisions indicated in red lines, again, that we recommend for adoption. Policy 805 is waste reduction and recycling, and it specifies programs and practices the district will use to decrease waste and practice environmentally sound waste management, which we've already adopted and currently do. And there are some red lines that we recommend for adoption. Policy 806 is the crisis management policy. It provides guidelines to help assist the district create crisis management policies throughout the district. And there are some red lines that are recommended for adoption, and that's a policy that we currently have. Policy 807, again, it is a policy that we currently have adopted. It's the health and safety policy. It provides assistance to comply with state, local, and federal regulations, and the update is, again, our strictly red lines that we recommend for adoption. Any questions regarding any of those?
Pretty minor changes.
Yeah.
And then we also have policy 905.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, policy 905 on advertising just specifies the parameters for advertising on school grounds and in school publications.
And again, just kind of a common practice, because these are updates, we technically could vote on them and approve them tonight, but it's become our practice that we like to have one reading and then reapprove the updates at the second meeting. So tonight's approval is just approve the first reading, and then we'll approve them on the 19th for final approval.
I would so move to approve policies 801, 802, 805, 806, 807, and 905.
Thank you,
for the
Director
first
Kern.
reading.
Second.
Thank you, Director Nystrom. Any further discussion? So we have a first from Director Kern, a second from Director Nystrom. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And finally, we have approval of retiring policy, FC, floor covering.
Yeah, before you tonight, I'm asking to retire this policy. It was developed in the year 2002, and what the policy was saying that the majority of the rooms in our schools couldn't have carpet and such. And as we've been going through the interior meeting at our standards meeting, the whole committee has determined that we feel that this is an obsolete policy, as carpets are so much better today than they were back then, and just more efficient use. And so it is my recommendation, and also the recommendation of the Standards Interior Committee, to retire this policy this evening.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Kern.
Second.
Thank you, Director Campbell. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up, we have approval of the ratification of the head cook's contract. And Assistant Superintendent Heidi Hahn is coming forward.
Good evening. The district has reached an agreement with our head cooks, and this is a 3-year agreement which will take us through the year 2020. We want to thank this group in particular, as they're the first and only group to move completely over to our high deductible plan effective January 1st, 2019. It's a major change to the agreement. We also made some changes to the educational plan to reflect FDA changing requirements. At this time, we recommend that you approve the agreement as presented. I can answer any questions that you have.
Thanks for getting the red line out ahead of time. That was good.
Yep, so we made sure you had a chance to review that, so if there's any particulars, we can answer.
I'll move to approve the head cook's contract as presented.
Thank you, Director Hagelin.
Second.
Thank you, Director Nystrom. Any further discussion? And as this is a ratification, I think we need a roll call vote.
Sue Curran,
Yes.
Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
Bob Nystrom,
Yes.
Chris Robinson,
Yes.
Reed Campbell,
Yes.
Tom Hagelin,
Yes.
all in favor.
Okay, thank you. And the ratification is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have approve a resolution of establishing combined polling places. Superintendent Larson's going to talk to that.
Right, and this is an approval, a resolution approval that we have to do every year. The law basically says that by December 31st, if we haven't approved this, we, for any elections that occur, that they would use regular polling places. And what the passing of this resolution does is any elections that occur during the next year, that we can designate polling places by combining some of the polling places. So we're just following through with the resolution that we pass each year.
I'll make the motion that we approve the resolution establishing combined polling places for multiple precincts.
Thank you, Director Nystrom.
Second.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Director Kern. Further discussion? So these are the same combined polling places we've used in
That
the
we've
past.
used in the past, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, this is a resolution, so it's a roll call vote.
Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
Bob Nystrom,
Yes.
Chris Robinson,
Yes.
Reed Campbell.
Yes.
Tom Hagelin,
Yes.
Sue Curran,
Yes.
all in favor.
Thank you. So that resolution passes. Okay, and next up, we have public input. So this is our general public input regarding property acquisition or anything else anybody would like to talk to. Again, please state your name, and be reminded to follow the policy, and 3 minutes. Keep your comments to about 3 minutes. Do we have anyone that would like to speak tonight? I see none. Oh,
Speak to number 5.
yeah, yes.
Good evening, Mike Duval. You already voted on this policy, or retiring policy. Superintendent, your comment about improvements in carpeting, I'm thinking, number one, of indoor air quality is certainly an area that's been improved, right? I'm also thinking about allergens. Is that also true, or is that something that you'd want to have considered as you're putting carpeting in these environments?
Absolutely, we'll continue to keep that in mind as we're putting in these environments. As we've been going through these standards meetings, though, there's certain areas of the floors that we believe, like terrazzo might be the most important in the really high traffic areas. In some of the classrooms, we really are going to want carpets so that our children can sit on the floors and have those little spaces. Other areas, we're going to be using like a tile of some sort. And so we've been having some really wonderful conversations with our administrative team, and the policy that was in place restricted some of those decisions that were being made. But again, we're going to keep all of that in mind as we move forward.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so next up we have for action, property acquisition. And we've heard what the city council did tonight. And so we probably should have our own discussion on what we want to do for property acquisition. So we can still proceed with this. As we have our plans in place for Harrison, and we can work on the one-way versus two-way and the concerns of those citizens. We've gotten several letters from citizens, and I think that's an area of concern for me too, is we want to make sure that we don't make traffic worse for them.
I agree.
And I think at the meeting last Tuesday, there was a consensus with the city council that they supported this modified plan.
Yeah.
And we too will be more than happy to work with the city engineers and all the people that we have working with our consultants as well through Woodseth Smith Knowlton, ICS, and we look forward to the opportunity to work with the city managers to find the best plan.
So we have this divided into property acquisition for the different schools, so we can start with Harrison Elementary. Do we have a motion to proceed with the property acquisition?
I so move.
I'll second.
So we have a first from Director Campbell, a second from Director Nystrom. Further discussion, this is,
Yeah, if I could, and not to bore everyone, but I would like to know what parcels are the south west. And was it maybe Natalie or Chris or someone can, within the parking lot area that's being proposed as parking lot? So on the furthest to the east is the commercial property that we already
That we
acquired?
already own, yep.
The second one is a commercial property too, it's the salon on the corner
Yeah,
by the
on
SAR.
the east.
And
And
then
then at 1601 Oak Street.
Yeah, 1601 Oak Street, and there's a second.
So isn't there a home, though, that's the furthest to the west?
No, there's a salon right here on the corner of 16th and Oak Street.
It's a commercial property.
Yeah, it's a commercial property. There's a house right here and also right here.
I'm a little hesitant to, it feels like we're taking a little bit of a risk. Most of this is intended for green space. But there's a little risk. But I'm more comfortable with Harrison on moving forward here, knowing I'm still looking at 15th Street and that whole one-way, two-way parking area.
I would like to remind the board as well that there is one more property at Harrison that we will have to have a public hearing on the 19th. And that just had an incorrect number when we double-checked it. And so there will be one property at Harrison that we will be having the hearing on.
so that's not included in these?
Correct, it's not included in it today. Yep.
So where is that one located?
It is on Oak Street, right next to, in between the property you already own, 1609 and 1601 on the corner. There's just a really
that little
long
strip.
sliver of property that's attached to the 1601.
Attached to the commercial?
Yes.
Okay.
So there are 4 properties that we will hold the hearing with the 30-day notice and such, and Harrison just has one. And so I'll address each of them as we go through each of the schools.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion from Director Campbell and a second from Director Nystrom. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried unanimously. Okay, next up, we have approval for property acquisition for Brainerd High School, and that's 2 parcels.
These are the two properties that are they're joined, and they're right in the middle of the lot. They aren't the ones on the south end. They're right in the middle, and the landowner has spoken to the board several times about wanting to sell those properties.
Move forward with the acquisition of those two properties.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a first from Director Hagelin, a second from Director Kern. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. And then we have approval of property acquisitions for Lowell Elementary. There's two listed here.
Right, there's two listed, and there was one that had a typographical error that we addressed when we approved the minutes a month or so ago. And so we'll be asking for approval of two of them and correcting the number at the meeting on the 19th.
So there will be a property on Third Avenue that's not listed here right now.
Yes, correct. 620 Third Avenue Northeast. It was identified as 602, and it's 620.
So we want to dot our i's and cross our t's.
Yes, we do. We are not doing this incorrectly, you bet.
I so moved to approve the property acquisitions for Lowell Elementary as listed.
Okay. First from Director Campbell, a second from Director Nystrom. Further discussion?
Yeah, I am not in favor of moving forward with, based on what we heard tonight from the city council. I'm just concerned again about buying property, and if for some reason they say no parking, we now have houses that we've got to do something with it. I'm not comfortable with that, and for whatever reason too, I don't know why we don't have Garfield on, but I'm not comfortable moving forward with these, and I feel bad for the property owners because we are continuing to leave them hanging, but from the meeting that we had last week with city council, I think it sounded like they were gonna be in favor of it, but I'm not comfortable in buying homes that we may not be able to remove. And then be burdened with that cost of whatever that might be.
For Lowell, is this just for parking or is it for playground too?
Just for parking. We had 5, if you remember correctly, we had 5 different locations that we were looking at for the parking lot. And when you came to meet with the city council last week, you had narrowed it down to 3 properties that we felt. And so we definitely minimized the amount of parking spots. I thought it was like from 40-some to 35 or something in that lot.
Yeah, it would be nice to know if their concern tonight was more just Harrison or if it was parking in general. You have an answer to that? Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Tim Rammers with WSN. So I met with Paul Sandy and Cassandra after the adjournment of the city council meeting. And I think the action taken by the council tonight kind of surprised several folks. But what I've done is I've set up a meeting tentatively for Wednesday at 10:30 to meet with Cassandra and Paul to discuss these issues. I think their biggest concern is the neighbors to the west of Harrison, I believe, have concerns with on-street parking and the loss of that. So I think we can work through those concerns. I really think those are the ones that they are most concerned with. I think in general they're in agreement with the actions that the board has taken. So I think it's going to be positive. We just need to work through that. So the intent is to try to meet with those folks on Wednesday so that we can get on the agenda and go to the 17th council meeting to get approvals in recommendation of our layouts as provided. So I think after the meeting, we've had some good conversation. So
What if we move this one to our 19th?
We can do that.
And we'd have we'll have some answers by the 19th.
we hope so, yes. Yep.
And we haven't even started anything on Lowell yet, so,
Well, I mean, it doesn't change any of the building.
yeah,
The only downside
is
is
the property owners.
property owners waiting again, but I think until, for me anyway, until that's ironed out, I don't want to incur that risk.
Sure. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
So it seems to me procedurally, we need to table this rather than to vote on the motions.
Okay.
Because I assume a no vote would not be positive in our process at this point,
Right.
from the standpoint of renoticing and doing some things like that, so.
Okay, so do we first need to rescind the motions?
The two people.
Yeah.
Or Reed would pull his motion.
Okay.
You can vote to table it.
I motion to table the motion on the acquisition of Lowell Elementary School properties.
Okay.
Second.
And then we need a vote on that. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed?
I don't know if that's.
Okay.
Was the motion to table or to
Yes, to table it.
It was to
rescind it.
rescind his motion.
You said table, though.
I did say table.
Okay. Oh, you did say table? Okay, so you're just tabling your motion? Okay, and you're agreeing to that? Okay, so then we don't need a vote. I thought you were rescinding it. Okay. So we're all set. We'll table it until the 19th. Okay.
Tom, what was your feeling on the other ones then?
What was that?
What was your feeling on the other ones then? On the high school and
He voted yes.
Harrison? I mean, they're all voted in, but again, we still don't have clarity on those either, but.
Well, the green space at Harris, or, excuse me, at the high school, worst case scenario makes sense to me. And on Harrison, most of that is green space, the ballparks and everything.
Yeah.
We own the commercial property already, so that's really not part of this. So I'm less concerned about that, but in particular with Lowell and Garfield, it's strictly intended for parking.
Yeah, until we get clarity, yeah.
Yep, I think it's great.
Okay, so we'll move on. We're done with our action items. We have some informational information. Lane Larson on, or is that you, or is
Yeah,
that?
it's me.
Okay, okay.
Yep, last Monday, December 3rd, the Brainerd Public School Foundation held their Board of Directors agenda. It was a little Christmas party, so it was a short agenda as far as the agenda itself, and just a nice time to get together. There were the typical, updates on treasurer's report and so on, but I think the most important thing is they talked about the Chamber Business Extravaganza, which is tomorrow night. For the foundation, we'll partner with that, and if I remember correctly, that's at Madden's. They also talked a lot about the big event, and that the sponsors are coming in really quickly. Please get your tickets if you want tickets for the big event, because they're going quickly. And I sent out some website information to the board and to people last week, reminding you to get them. One of the things that they talked in great detail, though, is that right now we have 73 auction items, and we're looking for more than 200. And so if anybody here has some great ideas for auction items for the foundation, big event on February 2nd, 2019, please let me know, and we'll get those forward to the foundation. The Dream Big initiative was tabled at their meeting, and we'll be talking about that at our next meeting. But we're really excited about the grant reviews that are coming up and the big event, and our next meeting will be January 7th at 3 o'clock. So that's
Thank
it.
you. Yeah, thank you. And Marcy, with our business services report, you're going to talk about enrollment.
The enrollment report, student count as of December 3rd was kindergarten through 12, 6,560, which is about down 28 from the previous month, and down 62 from the beginning of the year. So I asked Sue, I said, well, what's the magic answer if somebody asks the question? And she said that, just remember that this is net. So even though it says down 28, that is kids leaving and coming. So the number that is down is actually more than that, but the net of the two is 28. And she did say that she hasn't reviewed Forest View or the high school, but she has looked at the elementaries, and a lot of the elementaries, when they leave, they're gone. When it's Forest View or the high school, they're finding alternatives like homeschool or, AEC, those kind of alternatives. So just so you have that in the back of your mind, these ones are potentially gone for the rest of the year, if that makes sense. And the only other update I had was school safety grant. We did get a second request for more information. We've sent that in, waiting to hear the final approval on it. So, is there any questions on the enrollment?
So we may get a second safety grant?
No, so we had to submit additional information to the
Oh,
state.
okay.
I wish.
Any other questions for Marcy? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Superintendent's report.
All right, just a real quick one tonight, because we've had a great meeting, and we're really excited about this Wednesday. Todd Stone with NPR is going to be coming and talking to a few people from the district, maybe giving some calls, and wants to do some kind of a story on our referendum. And so we're very excited about the positive publicity that is going to be bringing to our school. Also, on Friday, we have a standards committee at 8 o'clock, and next Tuesday, there will be project oversight. The one that I really want to remind everyone, though, is that on Wednesday, the 19th, we do have a special board meeting, but we have a hearing prior to that at 11:45 where we're going to bring forth the 4 properties, and I think that we still should go forward with the hearing because you still have to wait 30 days before you can act on it, and we just don't want to be getting behind in this project at all. We're on time with all of our projects right now because of the diligent decision-making that you've been taking, and we want to make sure that if things go through with the city and such, that we've got everything in place so that we can take action as needed. Following that, we have a special board meeting at noon. And then we're going to do something different in the superintendent's office. We're going to have a little open house from 1 to 3:45 that day. So anyone that's around, we hope you'll stop by just for some cookies and cider and hot chocolate. And we're just really excited to host. We've been trying to be really festive this year, so we've been having fun with that. The last thing that I'd like, as you know, we're going to be gone. Have the district offices closed over Christmas and the New Year, a couple of days each day. But then in January, we'll have our organizational meeting on the 14th at 5:30 with our regular meeting at 6 o'clock. And that's Monday night. And then on Tuesday and Wednesday, Charles Blacklance, our incoming board member, will be going to phase 1 and 2 training. And then the Board of Education will be attending the MSBA Leadership Conference, and the theme this year is Leadership and Trust. I would just like to announce right now from the beginning, and we'll do this at future meetings as well, but I want to remind people that since there will be a quorum of the board attending that conference, that there are times where a quorum of the board may be together while driving, eating, presenting, and/or attending professional development sessions. And that ends my report.
Okay. Thank you. And I think you went through all the future board and committee meetings, and I wasn't going to do this, but I have to do this. I just want to thank Director Robinson for his years of service. And we have a few gifts for you after the meeting. That's it. So any other business to come before the board? Sure. Well, I thought maybe after the meeting, but you can give it to him
We
now.
were going to be really quiet about this.
I know.
Let you go out, but thank you, Ruth, for not letting
I
that
know.
happen. So,
He's probably,
so, on behalf of the board, thank you so much, and myself as well. Thank you, Chris. It's been great.
is there any other business to come before the board? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.
Hmm.